Hey, what is up guys? So the September list is officially posted on the Konami website for TCG and is very different from the OCG. But let's jump right into it. I'm not going to only go over the ban list, but we're going to be going into an in-depth discussion about, what cards and what, decks are actually going to be viable in the meta game, because it's a lot different than the OCG, and it's actually a pretty awesome list. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So first off, all the baby E-Dragons are banned. We shouldn't really need to talk about that. E-Dragons were an OP deck to start with. And next up, we have the first card that's different from the OCG, Elemental Hero Stratos. Now, I don't understand this from a TCG player point of view, because heroes haven't been doing so hot in the TCG. In the OCG, heroes have been doing good simply because the Japanese, they are so excited about E-Heroes. Regardless of what format it is, they're always about the E-Heroes. I think it's one of those decks where it's just players just simply love it, and they've been playing it for so long they understand how to play it, and it is a very cheap deck to make. Now, I'm surprised this got hit from the TCG, like I said, because the OCG players love the deck more than us. But at first I was like, okay, since Bestiary is 2 in the OCG, maybe that would be the reason, because you can search out Prisma. I don't know. But the thing is, we'll get into it later, but Bestiary is actually still at 1. And as far as Stratos goes, this is very interesting. I think it was because they are actually putting Heroes Live to 3, and that's probably the main reason, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, it's pretty interesting to see Stratos being hit, especially just from the TCG. I think if anything, it should have been hit in the OCG, simply because that deck always tops, and Heroes, like I said, haven't been doing so hot here. But I mentioned Stratos was going to get banned a long time ago. None of you guys believed me, but, it's kind of one of those things where, some players didn't see it coming, and, it just happened, really. So next up, we have Shockmaster ban. That is a shock to me, because that card is pretty good, but the thing is, no meta deck was really using it. But the way I look at it is, no one likes to get first turn Shockmaster, and there's so many decks that can just be like first turn Shockmaster effects, and then you can't even play your deck, and at that point you're like, okay, well, I lose. Like, it's very discouraging for players to run into a first turn Shockmaster, and I think that there are technically combos in Yu-Gi-Oh where you can stun your opponent by having a perfect field, like you have something like a Jowgen and a Fate. That essentially is basically like a small little stun. A more conditional stun would be something like Tiger King Wenku, multiple Burden of the Mighties, and Light of Intervention. So like there's combos in Yu-Gi-Oh where you can stun your opponent that require so many cards to where it's like, okay, your opponent had a setup for it, or they had like a godly hand, and Shockmaster is one of those cards where you can pretty much just throw out, and like a lot of decks can throw out first turn. It's like I said, it's very discouraging for players to run to a first turn Shockmaster. Next up, we have Card Destruction. So Dark Worlds, I'm sorry you guys can't sack us anymore. I'm actually glad with this, because Card Destruction was pretty much only used in like derpy decks anyways, and when it went off, it was like really game breaking, so I'm glad for that. This card, oh my gosh, I can't tell you how much I love you guys, Konami, for hitting this card. Even though Samurais weren't doing too hot, especially in the OCG. In the TCG, we kind of love this deck a lot. I mean, it always tops once in a while. I'm so glad this card is banned. And even though it was at 1, the thing was, if your opponent opened up with Gateway, it was still like, it didn't matter if you had Maxi, Valor, like, you still lost. Gateway was just too good. It was too fast, too furious. And like I said, it didn't matter what you have. If they get their first summon off, and, well, essentially, if they go first with Gateway, you basically lose. Like, straight up, as long as they can summon a monster, you basically lose. Next up, Heavy Storm. Like, this card and Monster Reborn, they always get banned, and then they come back, and then they get banned, and then they come back. So don't worry, guys, it'll actually come back eventually. And it's interesting to see that they did not put Churnade back, but Churnade would actually open up a lot more shenanigans than anything. Next up we have, where is it? We were talking about Heavy, and then Monster Reborn was also going to get banned, but it'll come back, like I said, guys. And the next up we have Pot of Avarice. This card is like absolutely too good, and I'm not surprised at all if this card got hit, since the format is technically kind of moving into a slower format. Geargia is a deck that can use it. Mermails is a deck that can definitely utilize Pot of Avarice as well. Next, we have Spellbook of Judgment. No one saw that coming, right, guys? Yeah, that's pretty explanatory. Super Rejuvenation, I understand why this got hit. It was only used in decks that really went really derpy. I have a bunch of these cards, so I guess they'll make cool tokens now. But maybe it'll come back in the future. I can kind of see it coming back. I mean, it was made so long ago, and with what the heck is that bird tripping about? he's I guess he's salty about Super Rejuvenation getting banned. But anyways, next up we have Solemn Judgment getting banned. Now, this is really interesting to me. To me, I find Solemn Warning to be a much better card, because you only have to pay 2,000, and it can stop things that are non-inherent. Like Solemn Judgment only stops inherent. And, you know, cards like Gore's, Abyss Meglo, those can't be Solemn Judgmented. So, I don't know. The way I look at it is Solemn Judgment was a more fair card in a sense because they had to pay half of their life points. And the way I look at it, if your opponent activates Solemn Judgment, if you have an answer like a Reborn, you know, Dark Bribe, or like something else to answer their Solemn Judgment, you basically won the game anyways. And lastly, we have a card that I'm so happy about that got banned. Ultimate Offering. Now, if you guys have played Madolche's, Ultimate Offering plus Magellane equaled game. If you open up this in Gadgets, that was game. It was derpy in a lot of different decks. And essentially, if you open up with it, you still win. And I'm glad that, you know, this plus Gateway, I mean, technically, yeah, it's not too consistent, but if you open up with it, you still get the game. Next up, for other cards that are limited, let's get into it. Atlantean Dragoons. I'm so glad this got hit rather than Abyss Sphere. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad. Abyss Sphere was the card that I was more sad about that got hit. The thing with this now getting hit is it kind of sucks if you're playing Undyne build because like that leaves you with basically one target. Maybe people will play like one Undyne, one I don't know, triple Undyne, one controller, and if they draw the controller, oh, that's gonna be salty for them. But I don't know. I just don't see Undyne Mermails to be as viable with only one Dragoons. But who knows? I'll probably end up still trying it out, and we'll see how it goes. Next up, we have Fire Fist Spirit. Now, don't worry about this, guys. Fire Fists are still gonna be like the meta deck for a long time until we figure out how to, you know, abuse other decks. But yeah, this doesn't really surprise me, but the thing is, like, they can't really open up with it as consistent, especially since Tenki is also going to be at 2. But as far as Spirit goes, you can still recycle. There is a card that lets you recycle Spirit. It is a XYZ monster. I forgot its name, but I think it's a Lion Emperor. It's some XYZ card that it's a rank 3, so you can still, like, recycle it. If you're playing, like, maybe, like, Tour Guide in the build or something like that, or Crane, you know, you can definitely utilize it as well. Next up, we have Deep Sea Diva, also at 1. For me, I was like, it's not too bad. I mean, it opened up a lot of really dirty plays to go Trish, especially when you go, if you were, I was going to build this deck, it's probably not going to work out now with 1 Deep Sea Diva, but it involves, because, I mean, all you need is Special Summon Cyber Dragon, and then you go for Normal Summon Deep Sea Diva, and then you go into a level 3 monster. And at that point, you have access. Wait, is it 3 or 2? Anyways, you can make. I'm so bad at numbers. Let me go ahead and bust up my calculator. So you have Diva plus Trisha's 9. So yeah, you Diva into another level 2 monster, and then you can go straight into Trish, because 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, okay. So yeah, you go Deep Sea Diva into level 2, and then you can make a Trish real easy. And what you can do also is, you know, Deep Sea Diva plus Marksman. It was a pretty good play as well, but now that's at 1, it won't be as viable. Plus Deep Sea Diva into like first ring Catastrophist was pretty dirty as well. And I'm surprised Bestiary didn't go to 2. This would have done like nothing for the game, to be honest. That's the way I look at it. Some people were excited about Glad's coming back, but I don't see it coming back, just simply because of Bestiary. And obviously with Bestiary at 1, it probably won't even like see any play any more than it actually is at the moment. Next up, we have Birdman because of the whole Blast Fan, you know, FTK. Like, that was an annoying deck to play. I think if anything, they should have hit the field spell, but hey, oh well. Birdman was an awesome card. I really loved this card in a lot of different decks, but yeah, it's kind of sad for me, but I understand. Next up, we have Rescue Rabbit. So that makes any deck that's playing Rescue Rabbit, they probably don't want to play 6 vanillas for 1 rabbit, but they'll probably still stick with 3 vanillas and 1 rabbit. That's the way I look at it. If you're still playing the whole like Dino Rabbit deck, I mean, pretty much at this point, you gotta just play like 3 vanillas. It's probably just triple Sabersaurus, and that's gonna be it. Next up, we have Thunder King at 1. Now that kind of strikes me as something, you know, to take into consideration. The deck is definitely more of an XYZ and Synchro format, so I can understand why they actually hit Thunder King, but technically the way I look at it, Thunder King is a slower card. It makes the game a little bit slower, but by itself, it is a very potent card. If your opponent goes first and Thunder King set multiple card, it's very difficult to deal with sometimes, and I like the direction where this game is going, where it's turning into more of like you don't have a first turn like huge like stun, and I like that. I like to be able to play the game, you know, for multiple turns, not just like, you know, within the first 3 turns that determines the winner. And next up, we have Evil Gishki Mind Ugus. The thing with Gishkis is sometimes they can sack you. It happens. They have so many like searching cards, but the whole Aquamirror and Salvage can, you know, dirty you at times. But the way I look at it is the deck is not that strong. I mean, there's so many decks that just like simply make use of just destroying that deck. But they have so many, you know, searchers. It's ridiculous in that deck. Next up, we have DeLorean at 1. I don't think this really does anything. Most of the players that were playing DeLorean and Mermails played 1 anyways. There's very tight room on the extra deck as far as that goes. But this card at 3 would actually break the game because there's a card called Symbols of Heritage, which absolutely destroys the game. Next up, we have M7. I guess the way I look at it is Constellars would probably be a little bit more meta, because, you know, Constellars aren't getting touched at all, other than Tenki, really. But, yeah, with M7 here, makes it so like it's not as viable. I mean, most of the decks that played M7 were not Constellars that played multiples, and you know, Constellars with only one M7, it kind of hurts a little bit. And next up, this is actually crazy. Patrick Hoban. If you guys have any of you guys have actually seen the ban list that Patrick Hoban put up, everyone was making fun of him because he was like D-Fissure, Macro, and 1. And I'm like, nah. Even for me, I honestly didn't see it coming. Like, I don't think anyone saw the D-Fissure and Macro going to 1 because, you know, this is an anti-meta card. But, you know, it really sucks when your opponent opens up with it and you can't play. But as a player that, you know, usually likes the graveyard, I think that's an okay move. But, you know, Dark Worlds are kind of probably excited about this, but technically now, some players just played 3 macro against Dark Worlds, but now it's going to be like, you know, 1 macro, 1 D-Fissure. So he's like, it's not that bad. It's still very viable against certain decks. Next up, we have Gold Sark at 1. Now, I mean, with Dragon's Gone, I mean, I don't know. Maybe someone was going to try to make the deck with like triple Gold Sark, but now it's at 1. It's going to be very difficult to kind of make the deck viable, but someone will figure it out. I guarantee it. Next up, we have Royal Tribute. I wish this card was just banned. Like, this card is never made to be fair. It's just like, oh, let me set Spy, and then you have no monsters. Okay, that's cool. And, by the way, you can't use Reborn or touch the graveyard. It's like, okay, cool, thanks. I never liked that. Next up, we have some pretty interesting trap choices. We have Bottomless at 1. Everyone was thinking it was going to go to 3, but now it's at 1. Compulse is now at 1, and that's really interesting because now it's pretty much people are going to be like, okay, I'll just play a Torrential, Mirror Force, and we'll get into that later. But Torrential is actually going to be at 1 as well. So, D-Prison actually on this list is going to be at 2, and so people might check out D-Prison, but I think Mirror Force is actually kind of good at 2 because, you know, I think it's a good card. It punishes bad players, but, you know, against decks like Fire Kings, D-Prison is a much better card, as you guys know, because, you know, destroying the Garunics is just going to make it come back and problems are going to happen again anyways. Yeah, I think it's interesting to see that Compulse was actually hit. I think that, you know, since Bottomless was going down to 1, it made it so players would probably look towards Compulse, and Compulse is at 1 too. So pretty much it's going to be like main deck Compulse, main deck Bottomless, and probably main deck maybe like a D-Prison or like a Mirror Force. Obviously, Torrential Tribute is such a powerful card, and, you know, what I like about this is it makes it so if your opponent used Torrential, you don't have to worry about Torrential again, because that's a card that hurts. It hurts a lot, especially against bad players. Next up, we have more cards that are going to 2. We have Mizuki going to 2. We have Plague Spreader going to 2. If anything, Plague Spreader should have went to 2 a long time ago. It's a very slow card, and it's technically kind of like a -1. But the thing is, with Mizuki, that actually pushes vampires a lot more because Plague Spreader is not that great against in vampires. It's an okay card, but like it at 2 won't do anything. Mizuki at 2 definitely opens up a lot of stuff, though. It's going to be very viable. And next up, Konami did us justice. The OCG didn't free my boy. TG Striker is now at 2. I was looking at every list, and if the list didn't have TG Striker, I always said it was fake because there was no reason why TG Striker was at 2. But, you know, it was at 1. But now it's at 2. TG's looking pretty good. I mean, Heavy's gone. Also, Turnate is gone, so TG is looking pretty good. I mean, the slow game with TGs, you know, TGs usually wins those longer games, especially with that TG trap card that's like Creature Swap. It's pretty dirty. Next up, we have Tenki at 2. It won't really do anything very much. I mean, it'll make the deck not as, you know, fast, but it's still, you know, it technically does hurt the deck, but the deck is still going to be viable, and it's probably going to be one of the more meta decks in this next format. Next up, we have D-Prison now at 2. Now that's interesting because the way I looked at it, like, people are going to main deck, because what happens a lot of times, guys, with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is when a card goes to 1, everyone wants to play it. Like, for example, Book of Moon, when that card went to 1, everyone's like, okay, I gotta play Book of Moon now. And the way I look at it is people are going to play Compulse, they're going to play D-Prison, they're going to play Compulse, they're going to play Bottomless, they're going to play Torrential, and then maybe D-Prison now? And, like, would you really want to fit 3 D-Prisons? I don't know. But, yeah, it doesn't really change much of the game. And next up for cards back at 3. First off, Malicious and Earth. So I'm looking kind of like I want to play some Destiny Hero Transmodify Agents. That's going to be some deck that I'm going to have some fun with later down the line. But, you know, Mally didn't do anything, and D-Draw's technically still at 3, so who knows? This might be very viable. And now that Earth is at 3, you know, Agents are making a comeback. But, I mean, the deck pretty much just has Christie. That card, like, hurts so much. If you guys have ever ran into Christie, that thing is difficult to deal with because if you don't OTK them or something, when Christie comes back, if it grabs Honest, it's like, oh, it hurts. Next up, Tsukiyomi. I don't even know why this card was banned for, like, the longest time. Like, it didn't really hurt. I mean, I know that there was technically a lot with that card, Mask of Darkness, Time Seal, but that combo is too hard to pull off, and on top of that, Time Seal is actually banned anyways. But next up, Hero Lives, going to 3. Now that could be possibly the reason why they hit Stratos. I can understand that, but it kind of makes Glads viable still, because if any of you guys have played Hero Lives Glads, that card at 3 helps out so much. And next up we have Black Whirlwind at 3, so that's a huge boost to Blackwings. I'm going to have my Starlight Roads ready, because Starlight Road is a fantastic card against Blackwings. When they go for that Icarus attack, you're like, nope, not only do you lose a monster, but you lose, you know, the Icarus attack, plus I get a Stardust? Yeah, Icarus attack is going to be a fantastic card for Blackwings, but Starlight Road is going to be even better. But the problem is, you know, Heavy's gone, and that was pretty much the main time where Starlight Road was used, was when, you know, when your opponent activated Heavy Storm. But against Blackwings and, you know, Light Sworn, I really do like siding in Starlight Road, so maybe that'll see a little bit more play. So if you don't have them, I would recommend picking up a few. They're not going to go like too high up in price, but Blackwings will get popular. I know it's going to happen, and in order to battle Blackwings, you got to just pop the monster. Like, the way I look at it is, if you're a Mermail player, just main out triple of those heavy infantry and just pop the freaking Blackwing monster. Don't get yourself colluded and, you know, have them get like a free value or something, because it sets up a lot of advantage in the game. Blackwings look like a pretty decent deck this format. I mean, OCG, they're like Black Whirlwind 2. No, we get Black Whirlwind to 3. That's a huge jump. I was surprised Gale wasn't put back to 2 before Black Whirlwind was at 3, but who knows? We'll see what the metagame has in store for us. So, we also, we need to talk about the rest of the cards before I finish off the video. Next up, E-Call is now at 3, so that could be also why Stratos was hit. The Heretic Seal of Convocation, I mean, Heretics was a deck where if you had Valor or you had Maxi, that deck just, like, it couldn't, like, play properly. Poly Duality, I don't understand why this card was put at 2. And then we have Scapegoat also at 3, which is kind of big because, you know, Plasma is pretty good with Scapegoat, so who knows, there's going to be some players to play it, and I don't know, maybe I'll check it out in some agents, because technically 3 Shine Balls equals, bam, get that Plasma. It's not bad at all. We'll see what it has in store for us. But as far as the meta goes, guys, I still think that Fire Fists are probably going to be the most meta deck. Oh, another thing that's important before I talk about more stuff is this is only effective until December, so we're going to be getting more ban lists every year, or maybe, I don't know, maybe this is just like a one-time thing. We'll see what it has in store for us, but this list it's pretty interesting. But let's go over what decks are going to be meta. I think a lot of players will be trying out Zombies. Zombies is a pretty good deck, but I mean, even Mizuki at 2, I don't know how fast it's going to be, because the deck is technically a little bit slower deck. You got to set the Goblin Zombies, you got to set the Pyramid Turtles, Creature Swap. It's a little bit of a slower deck. TG's looking pretty good right now, especially with Heavy gone. Glads are kind of getting a boost technically because Heavy is gone. But, you know, if anything's getting like the best deck to me at this current time is probably going to be 3 and 4 Axis Fire Fist. But Mermails are definitely still viable. The Dragoons does hurt, but, you know, Abyss Sphere is still at 3, which I'm more excited about than anything, because I was trying out builds with, there's some other Abyss equip cards that you can do, and I was trying them, and I wasn't liking it too much, but I still think Mermails are going to be good, Fire Fists are going to be good, Fire Kings are going to be pretty good. Unfortunately for plants, I mean, they should have brought back like a Lone Fire or something. At least give us some hope that plants are going to be meta one day once again. This card can't come back, guys, though. If you guys are wondering, like, why don't they put Gloat Bull back? This card can't come back. It is way too good. Especially for, like, the 1-for-1 shenanigans you can pull off with, like, Gloat Bull, but especially with all the XYZs now in the game. But, yeah, the way I look at this list, it's a pretty good list, and I'm very excited to see, you know, what players are actually going to be playing. But like I said, I'm pretty much thinking that Fire Fists are going to be probably the most relevant deck for a long time. So I'll update you guys what, you know, people are playing on Dueling Network, because I mentioned to you guys that I'm going to be going for that that top. Let's go for like that top. I don't know. We should shoot for number 1, but realistically, maybe like the top, you know, 100-ish on Dueling Network. We'll get there, guys. Don't worry. I'm gonna put in some work on Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'm actually gonna be getting pretty good at this game, because as of right now, I consider myself more of a casual player. But, you know, sometimes, you know, players just make mistakes, and I'm gonna get rid of those mistakes. But I'm gonna be playing a lot of different decks. But like I said, guys, if you're looking to invest into any cards, I would say Fire Fists are probably gonna be your best bet. I'm really not surprised that Rooster isn't on here, because Rooster at 1 really doesn't hurt the deck too much. So a lot of players will simply be playing like the Gyoku build, which can dirty you at times. But yeah, Fire Fist, like I said, I mentioned like 6 times. Fire Fists are going to be the meta, guys, for a while, until we figure out, you know, what people actually want to play. I'm actually kind of surprised in a little bit a sense that Ophion wasn't hit, but the way I look at it, XYZ Encore basically got rid of the whole Ophion anyways. That card destroys Ophion, so we don't really have to worry about that. If you're like playing like a high level deck, then yeah, you can get rid of Ophion pretty easy by just, you know, side decking those, or Revolt. There's so many other cards you can side deck against Ophion. But anyways, let me know what you guys think of this list, and Asian Dice signing out.